And then you gotta close this down so it doesn't feed back on us once it gets going. Okay, so just close that. Then we also need to start the Zoom recording. To the cloud. All right, so it's 1:19. I forgot to start the recording, so I'm going to start over with our call to order. I'm going to call the Grand County Budget Advisory Board to order, and present is Renee Baker, Gabriel Wojtek, Kevin Walker, Chris Baird, and Shaylee Bryant. On the board, we've got Carrie Valdez with us to present the library's budget. We started without recording, so I'm just going to quickly summarize to get the recording caught up.
So when it gave secretary and not approved.
Yeah. So we appointed Gabriel Wojtek as the secretary of the vote of 5-0, and then we postponed both of the minutes. Now we're on to the library's Fund 72 operations. We covered real quickly their property tax revenues. I'll just go through that really fast to make sure it gets on the recording. So a total of about $1,147,000 in property taxes. And then we've got some grants, a CLEF grant, and an interlocal agreement with San Juan County. Interest from their fund balance, fines and fees of $2,500, and $4,000 in donations for 2023. There will be eventually calculated a draw fund balance. That'll happen at the end. Then moving back into the expense side, Carrie just went over a request for a teen center at the new Moab Free Health Clinic complex. And that's $12,000. It's a $1,000 rent. And now moving on, Carrie, to the hotspot.
So the $18,000 request will cover 50 hotspots for the year. And currently we are circulating 180. I think that's 130, my apologies. We're circulating 130. That's a little much for the community, but 50 fits right in with the demand that we've been seeing on the use of those hotspots.
Okay, so it's a reduction in the number of hotspots then?
So as the grant money runs out, we would just we pull those out of circulation that no longer have data attached to them.
But
and
it
then-
shows up as a budget increase because we're not using grants anymore for this.
I mean, I will for as long as I possibly can, but I did, since Chris Baird and I met earlier this week, I did find out that there was an extension, a very small extension on the ECF grant, which it's a little bit more complicated because there was no money given directly to the library. They just provided service through the state library to us. Anyway, they will be providing some data for a set of hotspots at the rate of about, I think it's about $6,000.
So this wasn't showing up in the budget last year because it was a service provided rather than money provided.
The ECF, yes. So there's been numerous sources of grant money to cover hotspots. There CARES money originally, ARPA money, then there was an emergency connectivity fund. All of these are through the state library. So that's who we work with these grants. But that's why we have, upwards of 130 available now. But I'm not asking that the library budget support 130. I think 50 is a more reasonable number.
Sure.
And then there's a very, very small $2,000 increase request on software that's just related to the software we use to run the library. And those costs just keep going up.
Okay, so those are the changes, the significant changes in the budget. Is there anything else in particular you feel like we need to cover that's new or different, Carrie?
No, I mean, you take all of those line items and you add them up, and it's a very small percentage of the overall budget, because just like every other department, it's salaries and benefits.
All right, so when do you expect the agreement with the free health clinic to come to the commission?
My goal would be to get it on the November 1st agenda. I have some additional things, the ILA and the MOU to look at that time, so it just makes sense. That's my goal.
So yeah, does anybody have any opinions that they want to state on this? We're advisory board. I think, the commission will make the decision, then I'll just plug in whatever they end up deciding.
Are there other funding sources you have to cover things like equipment and computers or furniture for the new teen center space?
So my teen librarian and I have talked about that at length, and assuming that this is something that we can get put into place, we will basically just relocate our teen services area that is in the library to that building. I think we can get by just fine with the current infrastructure that we have.
Great. And I don't know if I guess this is maybe a wider ranging conversation, but is it tradition for Moab City to contribute to I mean, it's a library program. I don't know. Has that ever been contemplated?
As far as the teen center,
Yeah.
I've been talking to anybody that'll listen as far as partnerships for them to chip in a little, and especially with staffing. I would love to have 2 people in that building, in that space at all times, and not just one teen librarian. A lot of people support it. Not a lot are throwing money at it. So I am talking to, yes,
Thanks.
that's the goal.
Okay. Any opinions on the hotspot request?
I think that sounds reasonable.
I mean, I think it's all good, certainly within the mission of the library, and so I support it. The only thing, the caveat that I'd give, would just, increase the budget and hasten the time period before, they have to do a property tax increase, which is eventually inevitable. Let's make it a little sooner. That's the only thing I have to say, about it. I do think that it's important services, especially in the modern sense. Certainly the services that libraries provide, has changed quite a bit over the last 20 or 30 years.
Are those 12-month data contracts for the hotspots?
Yes. And I will reiterate, I mean, I am fiscally conservative. I often try to come in under budget and have done so successfully pretty much all the years I've been the director. And I know that there could be concern with the budget being kind of like contingent, having contingency funds, but it goes back to the fund surplus. This budget can only be used for library service. So if we budget for 18,000 for the hotspots and I am successful in getting additional grant monies, we simply will not use that 18,000 or a portion of it, and then it returns back to the fund surplus. And as Chris said, it will dwindle. My goal, of course, is to dwindle as slowly as possible, but it will eventually dwindle. And honestly, it's salaries and benefits. That's every department in the county.
Yeah, I mean, it's really the salary and benefits, the COLAs, and merit program have been the main increase in the library's expenses over the years. If you don't do those things, and you don't have any staff, and you can't have.
I would not be able to run a public library at all.
So there's a lot of other things in here. Does anybody have any questions about, any particular operational costs? Besides what we covered here, we're just looking at the same budget as previous years for everything else, really.
Well, that's a shame because I can talk about the library for hours. So
I've got a couple other funds that cover, but they'll go real fast.
Could you remind me of the history of the library tax, like how long we've been collecting it?
well, the library started in 1914.
Yeah.
So
And has it always been funded by a separate property tax? I mean, I just remember, maybe I'm confusing with the capital fund for the new building.
So there's two separate property taxes, one for the debt service and one for operations.
Yeah, and the debt service, that was, that was a vote that went out to the community back in, I think, '04, separate of the operations budget for the library. I mean, to the best of my knowledge, it has been county property tax funded since pretty much the get-go.
I'm not sure how far back the property tax for operations goes.
And is there some provision in the state code that we have a separate tax for operations as opposed to being as part of the general fund?
Well, I think that it was a voted levy. The GO bond was, I think possibly the same tax levy went to vote. I'd have to go and double check all the paperwork for that particular levy, but it was, I know that the debt on the building wasn't voted.
Yeah, I know that one.
And I can't remember if the operations was also a voted levy or not, but it probably is since it's its own property tax line item. That's the only reason why I think that we would have a separate property tax line item is if it was a voted levy.
Is that typical for counties in Utah? And most counties
Yes.
fund their libraries the same way?
Yeah, if, generally speaking, in the state of Utah, there's 3 different ways of funding libraries. There's library districts, and we are not one of those. And those tend to be the bigger systems. Then there's county libraries. Well, not most. I don't know. I'd have to do the math on it as far as percentage wise, but there's county libraries, and then there's city libraries. So for example, Utah County does not have a county system. They have individual city libraries. So Provo's its own little library, Lehigh's its own little library, and so that's also fairly common. But they're, St. George, what is that? Washington County, that's a county system. Uena County is a county system. Duchesne County, Wasatch County. Yeah, there's probably a dozen county systems throughout the county. That's the state.
Yeah, I mean, at some point, maybe if we have time at the end, I could look up, just pull up the certified tax rate website and just peruse some other counties and see what their levy is. Because it would, it'd be easy to see if they had one for the library.
To the best of my knowledge, every county in the state of Utah that has a county system has a separate, except for Summit County.
Okay.
Summit County, I believe, is part of their county general fund. To the
Yeah,
best
I
of my
mean-
knowledge, that's the only one that is.
Because we could obviously raise the county's property tax to cover libraries also. And so I'm not entirely sure of the provenance of this tax, but I don't know that it makes much difference either way. Money, if we wanted to, we could also, subsidize the library by moving unrestricted general fund monies into it. It's just we can't take the money out of the library into other areas.
I just wonder if there does come a time when the current library taxes isn't enough to fund it, maybe it makes more sense just to supplement with the general fund.
Good, yeah, that would be a decision to be made at the time when it's looking like, I'd say we want to project at least 2 years in advance of going broke, so to speak.
Yeah.
And make some decision about it. But I'd say we're several years away from that at this point. All right, well, let's move on to a couple others. They have a capital projects fund that has about 150,000 in it. So this is really for maintenance at this point. The library is 17, the building's now 17 years old, surprisingly. And so this contribution right here is actually just the contribution from their fund balance. So we're not proposing to put any more new money into capital projects. So we're saying we're going to draw what's in the fund balance out, and that's what this revenue line item is showing. And then down here, it's just another expense line to show that money being spent. So this would be, if again, we've had some sort of surprise maintenance over there. So this would cover that or any other building maintenance. It may or may not get spent, but we're just budgeting to draw it out of fund balance and spend it if we need to. So that's the capital projects. And then we've got the debt service. Well, this is another separate property tax line item. This is a general obligation bond. So the total revenue I'm showing from this property tax is 174,340, and then we've got the debt service on the other side. Debt service is about 160,500. So the property tax with redemption, penalties, and interest is bringing in a little bit more than the tax itself.
What's
Or
the term of the
than
debt?
the debt service itself.
Is it like 30 years or something?
Is it 30-year line? Probably is. Have to go look by.
Sorry, I don't know off the top of my head. I'm assuming as well, it was 30 years.
I can't remember who the lender is on that one. Usually those geo bonds get purchased by some bank. So anyway, the money that's left over that's not going to be needed for the payment of the debt service is that 13,840, which will send to the fund balance for this fund. At some point when we get close to paying off this debt, we'll probably cancel the property tax levy before the debt service is due, because we'll have enough in the bank to make the last few payments. So that's how we've done it for the courthouse remodel geo bond that we got in the mid-90s, which I'll be covering here pretty soon also. But anyway, that covers the three funds that make up the library's operations, capital projects, and debt service. Anybody have any questions for me or Carrie? Before we move on to the recorder. All right.
All right.
Thank you, Carrie.
Thank you all for your time this afternoon.
Thank you.
If you see John out there, tell him
Okay.
he's up.
I saw him lurking. There it is.
Howdy. Hey, John.
Nope.
All right, so this is a pretty simple budget. There are a few line items that have increased, we talked about. Looks like you're bumping up your travel line item to by 500.
Yeah.
And what's that gonna cover?
The travel. Oh,
Well, I'm just,
trips.
yeah, I just bring it up because you
Right.
know, like looking in the past, let's see, before COVID happened, we were looking at, we did spend 1,700 one year, 1,200 in 2018, then, 2019 doesn't look like you spent any, didn't spend anything out of it in 2020, 285 in 2021, 972 so far.
Right. Some of that was because of COVID.
Okay. It's still more than you spent in the past.
Oh, that one year.
Okay.
Right. I'm just thinking that gas prices are up now. So,
Yeah, well, the fuel is a different line item though.
is it?
Yeah,
Oh, yeah. Sorry about that.
so travel would just be hotel rooms,
Right.
per diem, that kind of thing. So we definitely want to contemplate an increase in fuel for sure, but it's just a separate line item for travel.
So, how much did we use this year?
972 so far.
So that's what we used, or
Yeah, so you spent 972 in 2022.
I don't, maybe Let's go 1,200 on it.
Another little bump up in office supplies and expenses, which looks justified because you hit 2,760 last year. Might even need more than that. It's going to be the same as last year.
Each year is a little different, so.
Okay, all right. Well, 2,500 looks all right then. Then bumping up your equipment maintenance by about 1,000. Is there something new that you've got to add into that?
Well, nothing new. We haven't used it.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking that how much did we have this year? I mean, last year.
Well, last year and this year, you haven't spent anything out of it.
Right. How much do we have?
500.
500. I don't really think that's enough if we have to use it, because they're gonna travel from Grand Junction, they'll charge travel time and all that, and equipment maintenance and stuff like that.
So it would be on, which equipment would it be on?
It would be on a large format printer, the microfiche machines.
Yeah, I mean, in the last 5 years, the most you've spent is 482. So, I guess, like, when it comes to unexpected issues, we've got a pretty sizable general fund balance that, at the end of the year, something unforeseen happens, at the end of the year, we always have our public hearing where we amend the budget. We can draw in money from the fund balance to cover those kinds of things. And this is just something that I make a point of, is that if you're putting money into the budget for contingency purposes, that money can't be used by anybody else in the general fund. So it's kind of,
This year, right?
Yeah.
But it'll go back into it next year.
Yeah, and so I guess what I'm saying is I'd rather kind of budget for what we would normally anticipate. And then if there's some kind of emergency, like some vital piece of equipment breaks or whatever, we can amend the budget at the end of the year to draw that expense in, or, to cover that expense by drawing it off the fund balance.
So let me ask you a question real quick. How much is in the fund balance?
The general fund balance, it's pretty hefty. We've probably got about 7 to 8 million in it.
So
it's
say the road department has to buy, new equipment for some reason, then there'll be enough in there to cover it.
Yeah, they've actually got a separate fund balance as well. So the road, besides the fund balance that the general fund has, they have about 5 to 6 million in their fund balance. So they're doing pretty well. I mean, I think that, we certainly got the ability to cover unanticipated expenses from drawing money out of the bank. And so I just, try to say, all right, let's budget for what we normally would expect. And then if there's some issue that comes up, it doesn't mean you're out of luck, we can still deal with it. But it's just a matter of doing a budget amendment to cover it at the end of the year and drawing that money in, off the fund balance. However we need to. So that's, my recommendation for how we proceed is just to always kind of budget according to trends and historical spending patterns. And then, if something, like I said, if something weird happens, we have the resources to cover it. You don't have to worry about that.
So
Chris,
maybe,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was thinking maybe I could do 600 then.
Okay, yeah, I mean,
With
that would
gas and all that.
appear to cover historical spending patterns. And then, like I say, if something unexpected occurs,
Right.
we can deal with it, either as an emergency purchase and then a latter budget amendment. There's all kinds of ways to deal with that.
Right.
So I was just gonna ask in general, if there's some line item which is zero most years and 10,000 once every 3 or 4 years, what do you supposed to budget for, like the average or the max? Some max?
Well, since I've kind of taken over, I've been really narrowing the budget down to like actual spending, and it gets closer and closer every year.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about
Yeah.
things that fluctuate quite a bit from year to year.
Yeah, and some things, I do leave in as contingency, but since the general fund runs pretty lean, I tend to try to really get as close as I can to the general.
The rule of thumb is just take the average of the past few years or the peak of the past few years.
Yeah, or a trend. The average works for certain things, other things I use a trend, which, if there's regular expenses, because you can track the increase of the.
Yeah, I'm thinking specifically things like repairs, which are, expensive when they happen, but they might not happen.
Yeah. So, like I said, I think, I would look back, a lot of times I'll also, like I'm doing right now, look back and say, what's the highest amount we've spent in the past, and then set a budget for that amount. That would theoretically cover any equipment maintenance that would happen, that's in line with what we've seen in the past. And if something really major happens, we have a multi-$1,000 repair, we only have $600 budget. Like I said, there's still ways to, get that paid for. And I'd rather use the general fund. That's what the general fund balance is really for, to cover those unexpected expenses, things that we weren't anticipating. So I think 600 should be enough. It's, more than what we spent in the last 5 years on any 1 year. A little bit more to cover, cost of increases to maintenance costs and all those kind of things. And then fuel, let's take a look at it. Go back, we gotta go back in time before COVID struck to find out. So how do you normally get your fuel when you go on trips?
Usually it's out of a per diem.
So
So
it
I'm
does come in.
sending Gina to more and more conferences. And she's using that expense.
Oh, so you guys are doing it all via per diem? You don't like fill out, you don't use a county vehicle?
I don't.
So yeah, the fuel line is gonna be used if you use the county's gas station at the roads department or a gas card,
Right.
Keller Strauss gas cards. However, if you do go the per diem route instead, it will actually come out of your travel line item.
Right. And that's how I do it.
Okay, so maybe we
But
should
Gina-
actually take that into account.
Gina is, like I said, going to more and more. I'm
Yeah.
sending her to more and more.
Okay.
So she's gonna be using the
Card. Okay. So maybe what we should do then is take some of this out, put over into the travel line then. If that's how if you're gonna do the per diem route, then we do need to take into account the fuel increases, because that's how it'll be paid out of the travel line. So I think, if this could probably be 400 and cover Gina. That's why, that's what it appears to me. I mean, we haven't really used it much at all in the history, but I would say,
right.
400 would probably cover Gina, and then we can move a few hundred more back up into travel.
Right now, that would be what? 4 Phillips?
$100 usually covers like a round trip to the Wasatch Front. That's how I look at it.
I think.
Yeah, we got those fancy new fuel efficient vehicles, John.
Let's hope they're not electric. No. I'll go with 500 just to be safe.
Then I'll add a little bit more back into the travel license. You're using that for your fuel per diem. All right, professional services has gone up, but from the budget for this year is 10,600. We're requesting 15,000.
Well, that's just singers program. The other,
And that's the coins.
yeah, another $500. I mean, another 5,000. It's going to be for a new CAD program. Yeah, we need to. The old CAD program died. So.
Program time.
Just about.
Let's see. So last year, let's see, in 2021, you got to 11,614. Is that just coins? Or is there other elements to that?
I think that was a cheap CAD program.
Oh,
It's
okay.
not
So that,
working too well.
yeah. So. Let's look at something real quick.
Okay.
So I can figure out what that coin's paying. So those coins get billed every 2 weeks. Not yet.
Same transaction date.
Oh, I see. The split, they, okay, so it's 767.50 per month times 12. So 92.10 for coins, and then you say 5,000 a year for the cat. Is it
Yeah.
a subscription?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, that looks about right. I mean, I've got mid 14,000. So let's give a little cushion on top of that if you needed anything else. So that seems pretty right for those programs. Special department supplies, you're asking for about 600 more than the budget of 3,400. What do you normally charge to this account? Special department supply.
Usually I have budgeted 4,000. Cut back a little last year.
So it looks like the most they've spent in the last 5 years is, okay, so you did spend 5,400 back in 2017. But the last, 3 years, it's been under 3,000. So is there, price increases, or I guess my question is, why would you be spending more next year than we have for the last 3 years?
Well, it's kind of like that. Over 5,000. I don't really know what's going to happen.
So a little contingency then.
Just a little.
Miscellaneous supplies, same budget as normal. A little more than you typically spend. All right, then on inventory, you got 4,000. What are you gonna purchase with that? Or hold on, let's do capital first.
Okay.
Capital 7,400.
Right. Working on purchasing a new flat cabinet, which I need. It's not ran out of space. The old ones. some chairs.
So you got a quote for these things?
The chairs we got out of Desert West's book, and the plaque cabinet. Looks like they're giving us a deal for 4,150 plus approximately $700 for freight.
Okay, 40 to 50 for the plaque cabinet. And then the chairs, how much are the chairs?
They're approximately $880.
And how many are you gonna get?
11.
Chairs. So these are just chairs for all of your staff? Or what are they?
No, for public.
Oh, just out like,
In total, 880 or 880 a piece?
I mean,
Okay,
no, total.
okay,
Yeah, they're
so 11,
approximately $80 a chair.
okay.
11 times. Okay, so let's see.
So that's a Cadillac chair. right there for 800 bucks.
I heard of it. They do make-
I
they do
know,
make
I'm
those.
sure they're out there.
So that's 5650. Is there anything else you're gonna?
Not right offhand. Can't think of it.
So this isn't quite capital yet. It doesn't become capital equipment until one piece of equipment's 5,000.
Okay.
So we probably move this down into inventory,
Okay.
but this is, and then let's go over what you've got for inventory. 4,000 budget request. Again, like for capital equipment and inventory, I just try to budget for what, we're planning on purchasing.
Right. Computers. Go under place where
Yeah.
been buying.
Did Matt let you know what your schedule is? Yeah.
Oh, I think going to purchase some this year. Some next.
But you don't know how many or anything like that?
Probably 3 next year.
Desktops?
All those little boxes that go on screens.
Yeah.
I think we need 2 of the more expensive computers next year. And 1 of the less expensive, the search computers, in other words.
All right, so I'm just gonna make a note. So is there anything else besides computers that you need to put in inventory?
Just the black cabinet chairs.
Okay. All right, so we got the plaque cabinet chairs. I'm just gonna make a note that I'm gonna check with Matt. He usually sends me the whole county's computer replacement schedule, and so I'll be able to
No.
check that inventory off of that. Okay, we've got schooling for 2,000, which is Gina gonna do some schooling or?
Yeah, I'm gonna have Brittany do some
Okay.
next year too.
Okay. All right, so anyway, I did lower the, that capital, but I'm gonna move that down eventually to inventory because purchases. But we got 5650, and then I made myself a note to check with Matt about your computer replacement. I'll just plug in whatever numbers Matt thinks is needed for that.
Okay.
Okay. Anybody have any questions for Don in the recorder's office? All right, I think that does it. Thank you.
Okay,
Thanks, John.
thank you.
Thank
You too.
you. All right, so got a variety of non-department funds and budgets to cover here. We'll start off with the courthouse debt, which is good news because it's going to go away next year. So this was a general obligation bond that the citizens voted to approve back in the mid-90s for the remodel of the courthouse. So this is one of the ones that, as I kind of suggested before, once we get close to paying off these debts, it's oftentimes the case that we'll have enough money in reserve from prior year redemption, tax penalties and interest to actually cover the last few payments. And I think we canceled this property tax levy. Well, let me look, I can tell just by looking at this. So we canceled it for 2021 and 2022. We're not bringing in any new property taxes besides what we're going to get from prior year redemption and tax penalties and interest. There's a small amount that appears to be showing up in there, but I think Chris Kaufman, I don't really fully understand how he does it, but he'll make some entries in property tax, and then at the end of the year, he reconciles it all. So I kind of suspect that this small amount, this 286, is going to go away at the end of the year. But anyway, it's not much to speak of anyway. The main point is that we canceled this property tax last year, and this year's the final payment. So we will continue to be able to collect, I mean, prior year redemption and tax penalties and interest will continue to roll in until everybody who owes money on this particular debt from years past pays it off. That's not going to be much. And so the reciprocal side, what we, up here, the way that I show the revenue that we get from this is in this transfers department. This is a contribution from the fund surplus. I draw money in from the fund surplus, and then I use that to pay the debt. We won't have to worry about that next year, so I'll probably just budget to put the prior year redemption, this small amount right here, back into the fund balance. And at some point, we'll be able to transfer this out. I think that I'll have to talk to the tax commission, but I'm pretty sure that once the debt's retired, the money that's sitting in the fund balance can be transferred into the general fund. I have to verify that. It shouldn't be much because we, like I said, we canceled the tax levy on it. So we should be pretty close to balancing out with that. So that's nice to see a debt dropping off the county's debt service. Any questions on that? Okay, then moving on to our municipal building authority. The municipal building authority is a kind of a mix between a political subdivision and a nonprofit corporation. We actually file with the state of Utah and get a nonprofit for that municipal building authority. I don't, fully understand why the statute is the way it is, but it requires that if we're going to pass bonds and obligate ourselves to debt, that we have to have a municipal building authority. Otherwise, we would have to go to vote for most of our bonds. And so most entities have municipal building authorities.
So the main function is just to avoid having to have a vote for.
Well, it's to be compliant, yeah, with the Industrial Bonding Act or whatever it's called.
But the alternative,
We as special service districts and other districts, we can bond without just directly ourselves, but we have to put it on a ballot and have it approved by voters. So most of the projects that pass through municipal building authority are actually other people's projects. We do have some of our own as well, or I shouldn't say people, other entities' projects. So this first revenue stream is a transfer from Grant County's general fund to cover the most recent jail remodel debt service. So a few years ago, we remodeled the jail, and the debt service on that's about $150,000. So this is a transfer from the general fund into this fund to pay that. So there's a new big project that I'm adding in this year because we got approved for a grant and a loan from the Community Impact Fund Board for the Jackson Street Phase 2 Stormwater Project. So Bill Jackson and I went up and applied for some funding for this project. We were awarded $447,000 grant and a $909,000 1% interest loan. Additionally, the Transportation Special Service District indicated they could put up $265,000 of their money for the project. And then this county stormwater contribution is a contribution from our Stormwater Savings Fund, Fund 18. And that's our match on the project. So our match on the project is $1,090,943. So all that combined, all those four top line items are for the Jackson Street Phase 2 project. Got a couple loans in here also for the airport, the terminal remodel, and the runway expansion. Normally I transfer money in to cover these from the restaurant and car rental taxes. However, we've had some money, ARPA grant money that's can be used to pay this debt. And I think we'll find out a little bit more when we do the airport's budget with Tammy. But I think we are still going to have some money from these ARPA grants to cover that. So this money will probably be coming from the general fund where we draw in the ARPA grant money. Then we've also got the Grand Center debt. This is typically paid for also from restaurant car rental taxes. And then moving on to some other entities, we've got the health department's remodel of their building they're currently in. Went through our billing authority, so that's $19,000 a year. They are going to want to sell that building, so we'll have to work with them because we are technically the owners of the building and the project, and so we'll have to go through a process to sell it because they're moving into the new free health clinic complex.
this is their building near the movie theater, like you see the office.
And then let's see. So one of the big projects that has been in this fund for the last couple of years is the EMS building. I'm pretty sure we're going to close down on that project this year. Is that your sense, Gabe? Have you looked into that at all?
I've been responding to requests from the insurance company and and not really getting a whole lot of feedback from Michelle or Andy about what is still left to be done. I have it on track. I can't say offhand now. There's still a few $100,000 left to be spent. And I, like I said, I haven't gotten any updates on if that's imminent.
All right, well, at this point, I don't have anything in for next year. And so if it turns out that there's still a little bit of that project left in 2023, I'll plug those numbers in. But right now I have nothing. But I am budgeting to accept the debt payment because part of their project was funded by grant, part by loan. And so the municipal building authority took the loan on, and municipal building authority likewise owns the building and then leases it to the service district. So this 118 is the debt service. So that's showing that EMS will pay us the debt service. Did we actually start that this year or next year? Do you know?
I believe it started this year.
So I'm going to put in 118 for 2022 also. Carrying on, we've got a few others in here. Moab Valley Fire Department has a couple loans through our municipal building authority, one for a fire truck and one for the fire station itself. The total is $33,000. There's a line item in here for interest on the escrow account that is for the EMS project. I'm actually going to drop that down because it's probably not going to be anything because there won't be any money left in the escrow account next year, very little. We do, this is something I need to talk to you about, Gabe, but we also take partial payments for the final reserve payment on some of these loans. And for some reason, in the last couple of years, or the last year, 2021, it dropped way down from normal. So in the debt schedule, there's an amount that they're supposed to pay every year toward that reserve. And it doesn't look to me like it was paid appropriately in 2021. And nothing's come in yet for 2022. So we kind of need to look into that.
And that's for which project in particular?
The fire department and the health department's loans. Something to just look into later. It's not a lot of money, but the way that a lot of these debt services work is that you pay a little bit into the final loan payment, and then the very final payment is covered by that reserve that's built up over the course of paying the debt. So anyway, that's all the projects that are currently in the municipal building authority, and the expense side is just a mirror image of all the revenue side. Any questions about municipal building authority? All right. All right, I wasn't able to get Fund 27 and Fund 25 reconciled yet. There's some big spreadsheet that I need to reconcile, so I'm just going to postpone those two. Fund 25 is a miscellaneous grants fund. I've been moving most of our grants actually out of that fund. It still has some legacy grant money in it, which we'll go over when I reconcile it. Then Fund 27 is a fund that we call a designated fund, and it's for tracking revenue that's specific to particular purposes. So let's say somebody makes a donation to the grant center, and they want to just spent only on the grant center, then we have a fund for that, and it doesn't roll over. So when the money comes in, it sticks with that account. You know, most of our budget line items just roll over every year. They start anew, and any unspent money doesn't get carried over. This designated fund, however, is different. It carries the money over across to the new year. And we'll go into that little, at another meeting after I get them reconciled. So let's move on to Fund 36, which is the healthcare sales tax. This is the one that we just basically pass through to the EMS Special Service District and Healthcare Special Service District. So I'm actually projecting at the end of this year, 2022, to bring in $2,967,000. which is down from the original projections of 3,084,000. So projecting a bit less than I originally anticipated. But I also add a little bit of a cushion to that, because since this is just strictly a pass-through fund, the money comes in and then immediately goes back out to the districts. If I underestimate how much money is going to come in, that means I go over budget, because then we send more money out than we have in the budget. And so I add 15% to this projection to cover the possibility that more money could come in than I was anticipating. And that way we don't end up going over budget when we send the money out to the service districts. And that did happen to me one year. It was kind of a weird thing to say, oh, you know, you went over budget, but we went over budget because we brought in a lot more money than we thought we were going to. So I learned my lesson there, and I, you know, put a little cushion in there so that that doesn't happen again. But this is just strictly pass through. Any questions on that? The split on it is 57-43, 57 to the.
So what are your current projections? Is it like flat from 2021?
Yeah, flat. I didn't add any growth to next year. And that's the case across all of our sales taxes. I haven't budgeted any growth. I took the projection for 2022 and just carried it straight across to 23. This thing seemed
Do we think
to.
that the budget numbers are going to line closer to 19? Or are we just kind of shooting at this point?
I could bring up my spreadsheet to kind of show.
I was just wondering, like, what?
Let's see. So it's more. It's definitely a little more than 2019. So let me get into a different screen to look at what 2019 was. I need to go up to revenue. So let's see. 2019, we brought in 2,139,000. And projecting to bring in 2,967,000. So considerably more than 2019, but down from my original projection that I estimated last year. So we're dropping from 3,084,000 to 2,967,000. So the way that I'm projecting this is using the 6 months of the year that we had at the point in time that I made this projection. And then I use the average or the value relative to our projected average for May and June, and then use that to project out the rest of the year. So the rest of 2022 is using essentially the collection rates for May and June averaged together. And it's looking to me like that's going to be, you know, a thing through the rest of the year, especially with the flood and everything. But yeah, still considerably higher than 2019. Does that answer your question, Shaylin? Okay. Any other questions on Fund 36, the rural healthcare sales tax? Okay, then we'll cover real quickly the uranium mill tailings removal project liaison. We have an agreement with the Department of Energy to fund a liaison position, sort of an independent oversight position over the operations out of the mill tailings site. The grant allows us up to $42,684 a year, but we tend not to get anywhere close to spending the total. However, I always budget according to the maximum amount that the grant would reimburse us. And then if we go over to the expense side, you can see over the years that we really underspent relative to what, the total grant allows us. 2020, we spent 28,198. 2021, we only spent 13,492. So even though we underspend this budget on a regular basis, I always just plug in exactly what's in the grant application. And that authorizes us to spend the full grant amount if we need to. And a lot of it really kind of has to do with what's going on. I think if, there was some problem or some major community concern, we would probably hit the maximum amount. But when everything's going smoothly, it tends not to require that much work or that much oversight. We did end up contracting this position with, who is it, over in the solid waste district? Do you remember?
Jessica Thacker.
Okay, Jessica Thacker is doing it. She's not a county employee, or is she a county
She's
employee?
a
for
county,
this?
we brought her,
Oh.
like, just like Russ.
Oh, okay, so it's just a part-time employee.
Mhm.
Okay, so it's not a contract then?
No.
All right. And she has some expertise in it, didn't she? Or I
Yeah,
guess Evan did, and he left.
Evan left. No, Jessica had. Put me on the spot. She had a background in some type of science.
Environmental
Mm-hmm.
health or something.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, any questions on that budget? I could say we'll probably come in way under, but no harm in just budgeting the full grant amount. Then the last one for today is to go over the impact mitigation side of the transient room tax. So up to 63% of total TRT collections can go towards impact mitigation. And this is one of the main ways that we can fund law enforcement, search and rescue, and a few other things, which we'll go over here. So again, for 2022, I'm reducing the projection from 5,571,000 down to 5,040,000, and just carrying that 2022 projection straight across to 2023 with no growth. So hopefully that's a conservative way of doing things, but again, it's difficult to tell these days. A few other little, so this is showing a draw of the fund balance for 2022. So there is a little bit of a fund balance that we're going to draw off of, but there won't be anything, probably won't be anything in the fund balance for next year. So here's the expense side. This is where we establish the contributions. So right now I've got 300,000 going towards search and rescue, 115,000 going to the Dan O'Laurie Museum. Now this is just a placeholder because I haven't got their budget request, but it's just sort of predicated on what they normally ask for, a slight increase every year, cover increases in utilities and whatnot. Then I've got 4,170,000 going toward offsetting law enforcement. So that would be sheriff, jail, prosecution. 400,000, which was approved to go to the solid waste district in the recent district allocations. And then also sending 55,000 to Thompson Springs Fire District. And this is how that district is funded. And that's according to also the emergency services provision on the statute for this.
So of those line items, which of them are being funded entirely out of the mitigation budget? And which of them is not just?
None of them are funded entirely out of the mitigation budget.
So there's just general fund money going into all of these.
Yeah. So it probably funds most of search and rescue, but not all. Probably funds about 60 to 70% of law enforcement. I don't know what proportion of the museum's operation that accounts for, but we do make a contribution to them. And likewise, I'm not exactly sure what the total budget is of that solid waste, but it's just a fraction. And so the only budget that's really total would be the Thompson Fire budget. The rest are just supplements. And so one of the main strategies over the years in using TRT to help keep property taxes down is to use this money, predominantly to offset general fund expenses. So what would happen if, this money decreases? That means that the general fund would be receiving less revenue, which would have to either be replaced with some other revenue stream or cut out of budget. And so this is, we've only done one general operations property tax increase in the last 16 years. And the reason we've been able to go so long without a property tax increase is predominantly because of the growth in transient room tax and sales taxes. So at this point, we're doing pretty well in the general fund. I don't expect we'll have to do a general operations property tax increase for quite a while.
What did you say was your estimated percentage of the amount of the law enforcement budget?
Well, we could look at it right here. Let me look at the add it all up. Calculator. If you're gonna write it down, I might as well get a bit.
On the record.
So let's go with sheriff. And a portion of this budget, I'd say probably like 60% is going to be in prosecution. So like 500,000. So like total is 7.2 million. So let's see what, go back to. $170. Something down. Zoom windows kind of get in the way.
Yeah, so that's
Let me write this down so I can. Four 170, 970. %. So that's pretty close. Yes.
Yeah, I was about to say.
So yeah, 50%, 57% of the law enforcement budget.
The main reason I was asking it is just I think the time came that we had to do some belt tightening. I think this is good that everything that's in reality funded out of the general fund shows up there. It's like zero.
So yeah, I mean it's the main advantage, like I say, is keeping costs down in the or offsetting costs in the general fund that would otherwise have to be funded by a property tax, essentially. And we do, like I say, we send money out of the organization to the solid waste district and to the museum and to Thompson Fire. And they're all eligible. And we tend to predicate at least the contribution to solid waste to offset impacts from tourism on the solid waste system. So anyway, this side of the TRT is fairly simple. That's all there is to it there. Anybody have any questions about that?
Actually, yeah, I guess I do have a question. So at what point, so if in the TRT statute that 63 were to be increased, but the list of things we can spend it on doesn't change, how much more could we be spending in these categories before it's more than we need?
A lot more.
Okay.
I mean, at this point, it doesn't really say, it doesn't give a limit to how much you can put toward law enforcement or any of the other eligible services. And this isn't the complete list of things that it could go towards either. I mean, we could send this money towards road department, road projects. You know, we could give it to EMS.
Okay, so the list of things and mitigation is plenty broad enough for our purposes. And-
Yeah,
And what we
yeah.
should really care about is the percentage.
Yeah, the split, and you know, the split was changed, so 10% more could go towards mitigation starting in 2021. And that helps shore up the general fund budget. I mean, in reality, every single county department is impacted by tourism. You know, obviously, everybody would be a lot less busy if there were no tourism economy. But we're only really allowed to apply this money to certain departments that are, you know, listed out in statute. So even though tourism impacts, you know, a much broader swath of the county, you know, we have to just send it to these particular elements of our budget. But like I said, we're not maxed out really on any of them. So we could definitely take even more TRT and have a place to put it. Okay, well, that does it for today. So I was able to get prepared. Anybody have any future considerations or anything to bring up before we close?
When do you want to do salaries and benefits?
Soon. So what I need to do though is I need to hack into the budget software and pull the whole file from last year, and we'll start with that.
Okay,
That I think will make it easier on us.
It'll be
building it
cleaner.
new, because
Yeah.
every time there is the option to import it straight from Cassell, but then it's just a big mess.
yeah,
And so it would be easier if I pull the file from last year and then we use that to do it. And I'll send, once I do that, I'll send it to you. But I have to wait until after hours because I can't hack into the system while people might be working on it.
okay, fair enough.
But yeah, once we get that done, we'll, you know, instantly start to see where we're at bottom
Yeah.
line wise. And that's a real telling because the vast majority of the county's expenses are salary and benefits. Okay,
The ordering is going to be kind of weird. I'm going to send these minutes out probably today while they're fresh. And then the ones from the 16 meeting, I'll get done next week,
Okay.
just as a heads up.
do you have any questions, Shaylee? Okay,
Nope,
right.
everything's looking good so far. Thanks for all your hard work, Chris.
yeah, thank you, Shannon. All right, so it's 2:32 and I'll close this meeting budget advisory board. Thanks, everybody. So that's, can you shut it?
Do I have to stop the YouTube